All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Or Umbrella podcast. Today, we have a very special and important guest, an actor, producer, writer, and we found an attorney from our research as well. So that's an interesting dynamic for sure. He is the writer for the movie Painkiller, releasing May 4th on demand, digital, and DVD. So we want to welcome Tom Parnell to the show today. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. You too, Michael.
All right, so we like to start asking everyone a silly question. And so being in the entertainment industry and the law industry, which is kind of a fun combination, what's your favorite movie about lawyers?
Oh, goodness gracious. I think one that inspired me the most, I mean, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, Justice for All probably was one of the top five, but I think The Verdict with Paul Newman. Okay. That's one reason I went into personal injury law was that was fantastic. I mean, I've never had a jury come back and want to give me more than I asked for, darn it, but but it was inspiring. So that I'd have to say that.
Yours sounds awesome. Right?
That's right.
All right. We want to start off quick and happy here. First of all, I read your story in a newspaper article, but I wanted to kind of get you, for people who aren't as familiar with you here. Tell us the story of how you came into becoming a writer and doing screenplays. From our research, it's a relatively new endeavor for you.
Yes, it is. When my son, we'll talk about in a little while, but when he left for college, the old saying, it's the three biggest times couples get divorced, or 1 year, 7 year when the last kid goes for college. So I was looking for something to do. I mean, I've written stuff. I've written a book of poetry. I mean, I like to write, but I'd never written a script or screenplay. In fact, I'd never read one. And I also, I've been acting in courtrooms for years, and I thought it looks like fun. Sure, anybody can do it, right? So, there must be a demand out there. So I called my buddy in LA, and because everybody in LA has to know somebody in movies, I figured, right? So, yeah, right. But he did. He knew Mark Savage, who is now my business partner. They were friends, and he had been in a couple of Mark's films. And so I called Mark, and we hit it off pretty well. And I did an audition for him. He was filming a movie out there, and he invited me out to be in the movie. And so I did. I went out and acted. I think I flew out twice in that film. But while I was staying with him, I started telling him about. I'd read a couple of scripts, and I thought, because I tried to write a book a couple of times, and I just can't write like that. I just, the sun shone on the shimmering lake, and I can't do that. But when I read a script, I thought, that's just talking. Hell, I can do that. And so I figured I want to give it a try. So Mark had written a number of scripts, and he accelerated my learning process dramatically. I mean, if I'd had to start completely alone, I don't know how far it had gone. So I give him credit. We still write everything together. It's kind of fun to watch, I would think, from outsiders watching this process, especially when he talks in Australian, which I know it's the same language, but it's really not. But anyway, I told him about, I'd made a list of 100 people I didn't like. I had a hate list, not a hate list about people. It wasn't people, it was behavior, that irritated the crap out of me. And so I came up with the idea of having a fellow, that had high blood pressure. And the only way you could lower it was to kill assholes. And so that spawned Stress to Kill. So I came up with the concept there. And while I was in LA with him, we basically mapped out a treatment. And when I got home, we wrote it. I didn't know you have to rewrite the dang things 30 times, or I probably wouldn't have started this. But, it's like taking a test over 30, But so we wrote Stress to Kill, and that was our first picture together. And I've been writing ever since. We've written together about 12 scripts. We hope to film another one. We're going to film in July, I think, called Advocate. It's another one of my dream scripts. It's about, because my son was in Little League, and I was one of those parents you hear about. And so I wrote a script that this kid gets crippled by his father, and because he pushes him too hard. And so later on in life, he's taking pictures of a Little League game and watches the father berating his son, and the thing goes off in his head. And so he starts killing overzealous sports parents. So Oh yeah, let's talk about relevant. But I tell everybody, if that was true, I'd been one of the ones that they killed. I've got it from the other perspective. In fact, I'm going to play that role in the movie, actually the abusive father. So it's right in my wheelhouse. But that's how I got started. And again, it was Mark's influence, and you know, I just love it. And I've gotten to the point in my life where, you know, I could afford to do this. You know, never been really concerned with, you know, how much money the film makes. It's, you know, we have a couple of really expensive home movies, but people seem to like them. So, yeah, that's how I got here. I don't know, wait until I was in my mid-50s to start this, but I'm having a ball. It's just something. I don't find the passion in anything else. Yeah, I play golf and fish and all that stuff, but nothing really gets me like writing and then acting. You know, once we're filming a movie, it's just an amazing experience. I'd like to do it until, you know, I croak. So I'm not going away.
There you go. That's good.
However,
stuff right
as you might have read, I've said this more than once, I do plan on keeping my day job.
That's a good call.
Hey, got to pay the bills. Got to pay the bills.
Dogs got to eat. Yes, that's it.
All right, Michael, what's the next question, bro?
Yeah. So when writing screenplays, what goes into your process? We've heard a little bit like you use some of your personal experiences and things like that, but how do you find inspiration and motivation to start and from start to finish?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, some of these ideas, you know, I guess that's what having some age on me when I started writing. I don't think I could have done this in my 20s or 30s because I just didn't have any life experience. And you have so much by the time you get in your 50s that for me, it's just been a lot easier to process, you know, especially the dialogue. You know, the concept for the basis of the story is a little harder, but when you start writing it, you know what you would say, you know what that character would say. You know, you've seen the interaction between characters like that. You know, it's sometimes when I come up with a really great line, I'll go ahead and type it in and see if I'm not plagiarizing it because I remember it from another movie. That's been an issue a couple of times, but I wondered who said that. That's right, it was De Niro. But anyway, it's difficult. I mean, I'm using life experience, a Little League, obviously, and of course, Painkiller we'll get into, but obviously, you know, what spawned that. And again, you know, Stress to Kill, because basically I'm not happy with a lot of individual behavior out there, and you know, I wanted to do something about it. So, but like that, but we've got a bunch of other ones. We've got one that was I've got actually a faith healer. He's a fake faith healer. Well, that's redundant. But anyway, he goes on a rant. So I've got that because I got a lot of my religious views and anti-religious views. I'm able to get into that script. So it's like that. Yes, it is. It's based on either my experience or my likes, dislikes, you know, things that I've grown to learn. So that's what, because when you have that, it inspires you to write, you know, and you're able to get this out, kind of like in poetry, you know, where you can get out your feelings and hopefully somebody will be entertained by it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So, just a side question: Have you ever published any poetry collections or anything like that, or do you just like to write?
Well, I self-published, and I did it mainly as a legacy. Give me a second. A legacy for my children and my friends, family, and you know, I sold a few copies on Amazon. But as you can see, the title: Words of Inspiration, Desperation, and Irritation. And I didn't break them up into 3 chapters. I kind of intermixed them. You don't want to get too desperate after reading 4 or 5. But and the book wasn't published until after my son had passed, and so I've got a number of poems in there that I wrote about him and to him and about my love for him and things like that. So be glad to mail you a copy so you guys can.
Oh, awesome.
Sounds good. Sounds good. My brother asked that because he's writing a poetry book right now.
Yeah, you know, I never even, I mean, I've read classics when you come up through school, you know, in my education, but I've never been a fan of poetry because some of it I'm sure is a lot more complex and headier than my stuff. But you know, when I started writing it, I didn't write it for anybody but me. And
yeah.
I found that it was helping me get through times but after you've written about 300, which I think I'm well over 300 now, because they're not long, they're not all long. And it's like, man, haven't I already said that? I'm like, I'm running out of thoughts. I'm running out of subjects for the poetry because it's getting redundant. But there's a bunch of comical ones. I wrote a bunch of, you know, ones that are funny. It's been a joy. So I mean, I've got about I don't know, 100 that I've written since the book was published. But
No.
again, I'm wearing down, so I need to get some more inspiration.
Absolutely. If you're not passionate about what you do, then you're done. So, that's good. Like you said, you want to keep doing the writing and the screenplay till you die, because it's a passion. It's something that allows you to have freedom and expression and like get through those emotions and those frustrations and those angers that you're talking about. And that's a really cool thing to hear about, because if somebody puts their passion into their work, then I have no choice but to respect it and to want to see it and want to observe it, because I mean it's showing who you are to the world, even if it's in a fictional way and stuff like that.
No, I get you. I always use this example. Years ago, I remember I was on my way to work and I saw this pulled in to get gas, and this young fellow was on a little truck and a little John boat, nothing, nothing fancy. And he was just so damn happy to be filling up the gas can. He was going fishing. I thought, God, to have the passion that I saw in that kid's face, that I've always said, if you can find passion in anything, I'm all for you. I don't care if I like it or it doesn't do anything for me. If you really get that feeling, I think that's fantastic. And that's kind of what I've discovered by the writing.
Absolutely, indeed. So before we get into Painkiller, which we definitely want to talk about for certain, talk about some of the other projects you've done. You've kind of touched on them a little bit, and specifically, I'm curious, like the first time you saw one of your screenplays on film, the finished product, what was that like, and what was your view on kind of how the whole process began and ended?
That's really strong right there, because it was a difference. I'd filmed a short. I wrote a comedy short called The Deposition about, guess what, a personal injury lawyer, a depo, and the defense lawyer ended up in a fight. It's funny as heck. I loved it, but it wasn't the same thing when I first saw the first cut of Stress to Kill, which was my first major film, and listening to Armand Asante say words I wrote, I literally teared up. I mean, I almost cried. I mean, I got goosebumps all over my body. I couldn't believe somebody was saying my words and they made sense. And, and watching the whole process, it was amazing. I mean, it's almost indescribable, and it's that way just about, every film since. It's just magical seeing something you've created out of your brain. I mean, just made it up, and it seems to make sense and logical, because I'm a fanatic about that. I just can't. It's so hard for me to enjoy some of these now. And I'm not being elitist. I don't think I'm a better writer than anybody. But if you're going to make a leap of faith like that, come on, dude, explain it to me, because I ain't getting it. And my family's like, just be quiet and watch the movie. I'm like, well, it doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't do that. It's like, just go away. And so, but yes, it was fantastic. Stressed and everything since then. And of course, now that I'm playing bigger roles now, I think I'm in 17, 18 scenes in Painkiller. And so I'm more engaged. I mean, I'm a continuity junkie too, so I'm constantly, watching that. We'll even do some rewriting during the film. Bill and I in Painkiller, Bill Oberst, we memorize each other's lines, so we would actually rehearse by doing the other lines, and so it really got me engaged. And then I would ask all of them, Paray, any of them. I said, do you feel comfortable with this line? I mean, if you don't, tell me what you want to say, because you need to sell it. And so, and I rewrote a bunch during Painkiller. I mean, just little snippets here and there, changing lines that didn't feel right, so it's just a constant. It's like giving birth for 3 weeks. Finally at the very end, the kid comes out. But until then, I'm paying attention to every detail, and you're so engaged. I remember after Stress to Kill, it was 22 days of filming. I was exhausted. I mean, I don't know if I've ever been that tired. And it was the worst 22 days of my life, and it was the best 22 days of my life. And all I know is that on day 23, it's like, where are we going today? What do you mean it's over? I mean, I had postpartum depression. I was for a couple of weeks, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was so exhausted, but the exhilaration was gone, and I wanted it back, And so that's what it is for me.
That's awesome.
Indeed.
So let's go on to Painkiller. I just wanted to ask about the movie and just give an opportunity to tell everybody a little preview about it, and along with that, walking us through the process of writing this script, filming the movie, your reaction to the finished result. Since this was kind of your baby, just tell us about it.
Okay. Well, as you may know now, my son, Jordan, was 22 years old, and he passed away December 23rd, 2017. And it was a mixture of alcohol and opioids. He was not an addict, not in the typical sense of the word. You know, if I told people, I mean, he worked with me here in the law office too while he was going to college. He was in a senior year at University of Tampa. We had a business we'd started that he was going to be running. I mean, everything was just, you know, the future was opening up for him, and it was all starting. And you know, he drank too much beer. You know, he was 22. He was in college. God, when I think about my college days, you know, I just like, you know, you didn't want to get too hard on him but I knew things were fixing to change. I had no idea that he'd begun to take opioids. I mean, he was a baseball player even in college, and he had some injuries, and of course the doctors were prescribing. He had that stuff, and I usually wouldn't let him continue to take it because I know the dangers. But he had several injuries. Now, what happened for him to? I don't even know that it was necessarily he was addicted at that point, but those things are so damn dangerous that if you take one too many, and usually when you're drinking alcohol, you're not thinking straight. And so I don't know where he got them, but you know, that's what the cause of death was. You know, whether he took 2 or 3 and didn't remember take another one, and of course it slows down your breathing, and pretty soon you cease to function. You just don't breathe. And he fell asleep that night in a house that he'd flown out to Reno to be with my ex-wife and my daughter to spend Christmas, and he was on the bottom floor, and he was down there, and he was asleep, and his mother left him there, and you know, went to bed, and the next morning they got up and he was gone. And so that's the story. You know, it was a rough year. I mean, it's still rough. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say I still talk to a grief counselor who's become a dear friend now, but I still find that it helps continuing this growth through this journey of pain, as they call it. But you know, she said, and people ask me, are you going to, you see this all the time when someone dies, whether it be a parent or a child, you know, are you going to start a foundation? What are you going to do to preserve Jordan's legacy? And I said, you know, I don't want to start a foundation. You know how many foundations there are for drug abuse and for addiction and for overdose, and it just didn't make any sense. And I didn't feel any inspiration to do it. He was him and my daughter, the greatest things in my life, and I'll never forget. Love him to death, but I don't need to do anything to necessarily preserve his legacy. I mean, quite frankly, he was still a kid. You know, what legacy? You know, he hadn't had time to accomplish anything. So I just kind of let it go. And then Mark and I were talking, and I said, you know, it just hit me one day, just like some other ideas, you know, for screenplays. And I've lost 2 other friends to opioid addiction, one before, one after. And it just hit me. I said, you know what? I want to write a screenplay. I want to do this. I mean, we got to try to help get this message out. I mean, 70,000 Americans are dying every year. And my son, it's like a line that I wrote in the script that when Bill's, you know, talking about his best friend, you know, where the guy served 2 tours in Vietnam. He was married 40 years to the same woman, raised 4 kids, put them through college, never took a drug, never took a drink, had a knee replacement. It didn't go well. They prescribed oxycodone. In 6 weeks, he was addicted, and in 6 months, he was dead. And if it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody. And it's just like that with my son. If it could happen to him, he had everything to live for. And he just mistakenly took too much of that crap, and now he's gone. And so I told Mark, I want to write a script. So, you know, Stress to Kill, Bill Oberst was in Stress to Kill. He was the primary character lead. And so I thought about him again, and of course I was the cardiologist in Stress, and I gave him the advice to go kill people. Not exactly, but I told him he had to reduce his stress. He figured that out on his own. He still gives me credit for that, though. But I thought, you know, the movie had a daughter named Ashley, and I thought, you know, what if he loses his only child and to opioids, and he's already kind of that mindset. He's already killed before, and that's how it spawned. And I don't think I've ever written a script that fast. Mark flew to Tampa and spent a week here with me, and we basically mapped out the entire script in that week. You know, subject to, of course, rewrites and changes, but that's how fast it came together. Now that was in September. We actually started filming halfway through January. We finished just before the pandemic really got started. Like at the beginning of February, we were done with the film, which was great timing. But that's how fast that project came together, because, you know, it all came from in here, you know, and I wrote, there's many lines in there of things that I felt, questions about myself, my responsibility, that I have Bill, you know, share, and, you know, how he was feeling and the pain he was going through. You know, I've been on a couple of local talk shows, and of course they want to talk about, well, you don't promote killing, do you? And I said, you think Charles Bronson and Death Wish promoted being a vigilante and killing people? No. But if I don't entertain them, they're not going to get the message. I mean, I don't want to film a documentary. There's already tons of those. You know, I want this to kind of sneak up and catch them from behind, where they're not paying attention because they're watching, they're enjoying the film, and then they're hearing these statistics, and they're hearing how you can become addicted to this crap in 5 days. 5 days. There's people, you know, in fact, a friend of mine the other day told me for the first, he had a hernia operation last year, and they gave him oxycodone for the pain. He took him the first night. He said he never slept that well since he was a teenager, and he felt so great that it scared the hell out of him. And he threw the rest away, because he knew there's no way I can do this again. I'm never going to want to stop doing this. I mean, who doesn't want to feel good? And if you're legitimately in pain, who doesn't want it to stop hurting? We all want it. I got 2 knees, I can tell you right now, scream at me every day, you know, but I'm not taking painkillers. You know, I mean, I'm exercising, icing, and there's a number of things that I do. I'm not gonna do that. And that's what I try to tell my friends and family. You know, there's many other options. God forbid there's exercise too, believe that or not. I mean, I work out twice a day just to keep my low back from hurting, not to build muscle. So I used to work out now I work out just not to hurt. So, you know, and I commit to it, you know. So anyway, so that's how it came together. We filmed the whole thing in Tampa, and a couple of small towns here north of Tampa, Lutz and Land Lakes. But we did a lot of it in my house. I've got a house on Lake Cooper, and we have this big area. So we kind of mapped it off where you know, when he's doing his radio show, it looks like he's in a different room. You know, so we had 2 different living rooms, so you didn't know where you know. So we were able to keep it compact like that, so it saved time, you know, expense too. So we could stay in the house and film all day long, you know. And so then Pare's office was my home office in there. So, and that's what we got that done in 2 weeks.
Wow.
We filmed that entire movie in 2 weeks because of things like that, of not having to pick up and move everything. There were a couple other remote locations, but that's how. And I was saying, I'm proud of the film. It was flawless. It was just flawless during production. Again, you know, I'm a continuity junkie, and I made sure, but there was never really anything that, you know, you can always look back and say, yeah, I might have done this, or I might have, you know, I might have made that a little longer, or made that shorter, you know, or changed my mind here and there. You're constantly critiquing your work, or I do. But overall, I'm very proud of it. And I just hope, you know, and I've said this a number of times, I'm honestly, I don't care what money this movie makes. I mean, I funded it, so I don't have investors to pay back. It's just me. And I said, as Jordan's legacy is, if this can save one life, you know, it's worth it. And that's my goal in this thing, is to get it out just for that reason, as a legacy to my son.
That's really special, really cool, because you know, a lot of people make movies to make money, and you know, good for them. I mean, that's how they pay their bills, and that's how they do everything. But to see a movie that has that deep of a personal message, especially something like that, I mean, I think everybody can relate to that, because, you know, we've all had dental work or surgeries or something that has allowed us to feel that, you know, like I have anxiety, and I started having panic attacks, and they gave me Xanax. And I'll tell you what, after about a week of that, I'm like, I'm done. I told them, actually, like, I was off it for years, and they're like, well, we want you to take it again. I'm like, give me the lowest dose possible, because that feeling of just total, you know, and then nowadays, like, you know, I've done work in youth ministry, and there's been so many kids who have, you know, come very close to overdosing on Xanax and different painkillers and all that kind of stuff. In fact, some of them have been in the hospital, and, you know, are fortunate to still be alive because of all of those things. And so to make something that can entertain people but also inform people at the same time, I'm really looking forward to being able to. I've seen the previews and little clips, but I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing, and I think a lot of people are really gonna enjoy it and learn something from it. So we're looking forward to it.
I give Mark credit for this, because it was like, okay, you can have dialogue, you're talking to one character, and of course, what's fun is when you want to get a message out, but you can do it in a couple of lines. I mean, you can change the face of an entire film with one line, as long as they're paying attention. But how do you get this out? How do you get all this dialogue out? Because there's statistics, there's examples, and his idea was, why don't we create, an internet talk show? And that Bill is actually, that he's the advocate there on that thing. And it's his show, and people are calling in, and that way you can get all these different views. Because I wanted a counterpoint. There are other views. There's people that think drug addicts are weak. Why don't they just stop? It's ridiculous. Just take the amount of the dosage that is prescribed, and you won't have any problems. And that's what we have, Pare's character saying a lot, but we had people calling in and expressing those views, those negative views, about it, and how addicts are looked down on, for having this disease. And so that's how we were able to do it in more of an entertaining fashion. And Bill said the other day that he worried that he wasn't, because him and I have become friends over the years, and he wasn't going to live up. His performance wasn't going to be, good enough to really convey this for me, because he wanted to do it for me. And I can assure you that I think I relieved his anxiety about that, because his performance to me is it's absolutely amazing. I mean, the passion he put into this role. He's a good actor, but I've never seen him like this. And Pare did the same thing, as the bad guy, as the antagonist. He was, and he did really well. I tried to hold my own, so hopefully I did. But yeah, that's the vehicle we use. So you're not even going to know you're being preached to, hopefully, while you're waiting for the next kill.
Well, and
it's all good as long as.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, horror has a way of sort of being able to break down those walls and be able to just, whether they're enjoying it and then they're just taking it in. And I've seen a lot of that, whether it's action or horror, when it's really a good theme, then it just plays so well. I thought of Rambo. I know that sounds funny, but Vietnam and the struggle, the trauma that people had going to Vietnam, and the POWs, and here's this action film with this guy going, oh, but it connected with a lot of people and their real life issues. And I think this is going to be one of those movies that everybody's going to know someone who struggled with this. Everybody's going to relate to this movie, whether it's them or it's someone they know. And so it entertains, but it also sort of, they can relate to it and they can get into that movie and feel that personal connection. So I think that's a wonderful vehicle.
You're right, Michael. I mean, and I've talked to people. Of course, I talk about this all the time, and I've given speeches and and lectures on it, and people come to me. They haven't been touched. They're interested and they find it, but they just personally. I mean, obviously, there's going to be people that haven't had addiction or have an overdose death in their family with a loved one or a close friend. But what I tell them is, stand by. Yeah. Because if you don't educate yourself, you're bound to be touched by this at some point. I mean, it's that prevalent, Michael, you said about what I was saying about one line. Rambo, of course, one of my favorite movies of all time. But that one line he said, remember when he said, "Are they going to let us win this time?" I mean, think about the depth of that one line, with all the controversy about, not really giving them the troop support to win that war. And that was heavy. I thought that's just a fabulous line, and for a lot of people, it might have just, but it didn't with me. But yeah, I mean, that's what we hope to achieve with this. I mean, I'm gonna push it all I can, because I think it's a cause worth pursuing. And this is my way. I mean, I don't know. I don't do anything else. I can't do it from a legal standpoint as a lawyer. I don't want to start an organization. I want to do what I do, what I love, and hope this has some impact. And that's my goal.
Absolutely. All right. Final question before we let you go today. So, by the way, check out Painkiller. Like I said, releasing May 4th on demand, digital, and DVD. But what can we expect from you now? Like you mentioned some more projects you have coming up, but what are some goals that you have set to achieve in the film industry? What's next for you?
You know, my daughter asked me the same question when I was visiting her this past week. By the way, she's having my first grandchild in June. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it's a little girl, but she named her middle name is named after my son. And so we're looking forward to this part of her life. But, you know, she asked me, that's funny though, when she watched Painkiller, I had her watch it on my laptop. We were off on a weekend. She was visiting last year. And so she watched it. And after it was over, I kept checking her out, make sure her eyes were open. She didn't fall asleep. But so we took the movie off, and she says to me, she said, you're not gonna make any more movies, are you? And I'm like, what does that mean? You know? And I said, why? That because you're not gonna top this. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, with the message, with the passion, with the, you know, I'm like, well, can I try? You know, I mean, you know, and she asked me that too. I mean, I don't really have any cinematic goals. I mean, I want to keep writing. I want to keep enjoying myself. I want to keep trying to entertain people. I don't have any aspirations for money at this point in my life. You know, I hate to say it, but I don't mean to sound elitist, but I don't need it. You know, I've worked hard, and I've built a law practice for almost 40 years, and I just want to entertain people. I want to have fun. I want to write scripts, and I want to film them, the whole process. I'm going to do it until I can't do it anymore, or you know. So that's it. I mean, I'd like to be doing this for another couple of decades if I can last that long. Yeah. But that's my only goal: stay healthy and make movies.
Hey, that's a good goal right there. You can't get any better than that. All right, Tom, we just want to thank you for coming on today, man. We really appreciate you. We're looking forward to Painkiller and everything else that you do in the future. We'll check out. So this is it for the Or Umbrella podcast. We will see y'all guys next time.